But we came together as a caucus at a moment where we just went around the table and everybody said, "No, I'm a no on this. Like, constituents cannot afford another tax."
Road maintenance. I mean, they go down the list, which I look at and I went, whoa, those are core functions.
Right.
So what are you spending money on that is not a core function?
But hey, legislature, come to Salem and represent the 140,000 people in the Senate you were sent here to represent. Represent the actual people. Don't represent the leadership of the labor union. Don't represent the leadership of the special interest group. Don't be driven by political purpose, but be driven by a grassroots effort of what your people are actually asking you to do. If the legislature did that, our popularity would flip. It would inverse, right? I think 11% of Oregonians think we're doing a good job. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, like no income tax. So where do you want to run your business? You want to stay here in Oregon where it's 9.9%, and then that's if you don't count the local jurisdictional taxes layered on top. But it's a tough state to do business.
Tina Kotek, the governor, blamed Republicans for her own party members not voting on the bill. Oregon says, well, hey, if you cross the border, you come to Oregon. Cross the border illegally, you come to Oregon. Guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to need a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Oregon took taxpayer money.
Right.
And appropriated $15 million.
Right.
That's what Democrats did. That's where I hope folks realize that's the government they got.
Right.
I certainly say, Madam Speaker, and I think Oregonians will agree with me.
Political bodies exist to secure responsible government and to execute the will of the
Hey, welcome back to the Oregon discussion on government efficiency, Oregon Doge, and we're here post-legislative session 2025, and I'm Mike McLane. I serve in the Senate. I'm here with my co-host, the leader, the great leader, the leader of the Senate Republicans, Daniel Bonham. Thank you for being here with me yet again, Leader Bonham.
It's great to be here, Mike.
Oh, great leader. You and Kim Jong-un. I mean, there's lots of people that are great leaders. But maybe he's not one of them. He just calls himself one. We also have the number one, backed by demand, the absolute demand of our listeners, Alex Lopez.
Good to be back.
And Alex worked for me in the Senate, still works for me part-time post-session. Yes, and Alex has put together some slides and done some research, and we have PowerPoint that was, and a lot of information came from the Republican caucus staff led by Raquel Green-Moore.
Big shout out to them. Great work.
Great work on their behalf. But here we are in the studio talking about the session, and I know many of the listeners out there want to hear about what really happened, and we're going to break this up into the good and the bad. So we'll start off with the good.
Yeah, we'll start off with the good. And before we get into it, I just want to ask you guys a couple of questions based on how the session went and kind of your own thoughts and experiences with it. I'm sure the listeners are eager to hear that as well.
Eager. People are eager, Leader Daniel. Eager.
Well, first off, what was your favorite memory of the session?
Okay, and I can't talk about the house and the performance of the drag queens, right?
No.
All right, so this is just from my memory in the Senate because I wasn't actually there. That was more memorable by a lot of people. But
yes.
What do you think there?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
You're waiting on me?
I think we got a good answer here.
All right. Well, my favorite memory is not in the building, actually. My favorite memory of session was the fact that we gathered a lot over at Daniel and Jessica's house, the Bonhams, and David Bruck-Smith. And he lived with Rep. Virgil Osborne and Rep. Alec Scarlatos. And we would have meals together.
He's a phenomenal cook, too,
Yeah.
by the way, Senator DBS.
David Bruck-Smith. So we didn't have a members lounge because of the capital being under construction, and so we didn't eat meals together. And I think one of the most valuable things about being in the Oregon legislature is that you share meals with people and you get to know them. You get to know their family, their background, their kids, and you build relationships over meals, which I'm a big fan of meals to begin with, and then getting to know folks. And so my favorite memory is the workaround, just being with Republicans and Democrats and members of the House and Senate getting together, and other sometimes folks who were work in the lobby, other folks that were work as staff, but you'd have a meal, glass of wine, and you'd sit around, you'd talk, and get to know each other, and it was really fun. Yeah. So my memory was, first of all, David Brock Smith, phenomenal cook, and then just being at his place, and then at Daniel and Jessica's place, and it was fun, a lot of fun. That's my favorite memory.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to you talk about those, and it's hard to compete with honestly the time of shared company. Like fellowship is such a good way to pass the time during session. It's hard not to pick sine die. Just the end, knowing that it's over.
Yeah, 5 long months
is always a good memory. But I think that there was a moment at the end of session where we were pretty intense in terms of the political pressure being put on individual caucus members to come around and support a massive tax, and had received those phone calls from members about the things that were being offered to them, after an entire session of, we don't have any money, people being offered significant investment in their community in exchange for a vote. I always find that fascinating. We don't have money, but here's $50 million for you if you're willing to vote yes on this transportation package. But we came together as a caucus at a moment where we just went around the table and everybody said, no, I'm a no on this. Like, constituents cannot afford another tax. And we had plenty of money in the budget to pay for all the things that we're being asked to pay for. And that was a pretty special moment. Being the leader role, which you've done before, people volunteer a lot of things throughout session. And so I wasn't necessarily expecting us to stay completely unified. And we did. And I think there's another question we'll get into next, which maybe this is a good segue just to continue on your next question. What were your goals for this session? Our goal was to put ourselves in a position to potentially win seats in this next election cycle, right?
Yeah, of course.
We've got to stand with people. At the end of the day, elections are about winning the hearts of the majority, right? Mm-hmm. Having more people like your ideas than like the other people's ideas. Mm-hmm. And so we really did double down on the fact that we knew that people didn't want to be taxed more. We knew for a fact that people wanted to be less regulated. Like they don't want the state to be involved in every aspect of their lives. And quite frankly, as we hit on numerous times, we have some of the highest taxes in the nation. Mm-hmm. Specifically in Portland, you are the highest in the nation, right? Unless you're making $25 million in New York. Oh, wait, no, we'll raise another tax so that we can get past them.
Yeah, which, by the way, Oregon stays number one with Portland. Starting January 1, 2026. No longer are you in second place if you make more than $25 million a year. Yeah, the county tax goes from 3% to 3.8%. So if you live in Portland, you're number one in highest tax rates come January 1 from every dollar beyond.
And again, what's crazy is Republicans care about you.
Yeah.
If you live in Portland and you're overburdened, overtaxed, we care. And we want you to be able to stay. We want you to have a decreased tax burden. We don't want you to flee the state because so much of your money goes to the state. We don't want you to flee the state when you're about to die. I mean, we have a bunch of different tax ideas than Democrats have, and we have a way to balance the budget, and we have a way to invest in the things you care about. And most of it is allowing you to keep more of your money. And when you keep more of it, you actually attract more You grow the
Yep,
economy,
right.
and then you still can have a robust state government.
Yeah.
You just do it by having many hands making light work. And so having that goal in place and then having that meeting, that moment in time where we all affirmed, yes, we actually did mean it. And we're not going to support this tax because there was another way to do it. Like, quite frankly, there was a way to pay for it without increasing significantly what you pay at the pump, what you pay to register your car, what you pay down the line, tire tax, all the things that they were trying to throw at us, the escalation of the employment tax to pay for rural transit. Like, it was just tax after tax after tax. I think there was like 13 of them that we outlined. And so it was nice. It was a really nice moment to say, okay, that was our goal and we achieved the goal.
Yeah.
Great memory.
Yeah, I think, my goal coming in, having spent, 6 years away from the legislature, from my prior service in the House, and coming into the first term of the Senate was, my goal was to, get in and roll up my sleeves about the budget. And what I found was, and I achieved that goal because I was able to identify that the Democratic Party in Oregon, which the voters put in charge of every facet of government, and when they drew a circle around, here's what we are going to spend money on, and then here's the things that, because of that, we don't have enough money. It, being able to identify that and get involved, it created a false scarcity, so that the narrative by Governor Kotek in spades and the narrative by many other Democrat leaders was that, we've got a budget shortfall, so wildland fighting, wildfire suppression, road maintenance. I mean, they go down the list, which I look at and I went, whoa, those are core functions.
Right.
So what are you spending money on that is not a core function? And billions. And so for me, the goal was to really get in there and then to find out what's going on and then to point out what's happening due to the enormous debt load. And we're now up to $37.2 trillion national debt, and what the consequences are for Oregon in the short term and long term as a result of that, and to show the incompatibility with the trajectory of the state government. We've undergone mission creep. We're spending billions on programs we didn't have even 10 years ago, right? So how did we get through statehood? I mean, I go through statehood and I go, okay, 1859, how did we get all the way to here and not have those programs? Well, one could argue because they're not to our core mission of state government. And so then to have the Democratic leaders led by Tina Kotek to just say, if you don't raise a tax, we're not going to fund that. And that's offensive. And, being part of the legislative branch, what I told many Democratic leaders in the Senate and a few in the House is, I said, we're not the JV team, right?
Yeah.
We're a co-equal branch.
Right.
So just because the governor is twisting your arm doesn't mean you have to do it, because she doesn't get to appropriate the money. We do. And you're not just the Democratic JV team and she's the varsity. We're a separate but equal branch. And getting people to start, focusing that way and saying we got to change the trajectory of how we're spending the people's money. That was my goal. And, it was achieved in part because of our advocacy. And the other part, just meeting with Democrat leaders privately and asking them to, give me 15 minutes and I'm going to take you through these numbers. And, I won't identify those Democratic leaders yet, but, there were a lot of like, holy cow,
Well, if we can re-answer the first question too, favorite memory, right? Like, we overturned a governor's veto of a bill.
Yeah.
Super majorities in the House and the Senate. And in the Senate, we overturned Senate to the House. And again, the craziest thing about that memory was how offensive it was that we had a unanimous bill pass the legislature and the governor vetoed it. She vetoed it out of spite because she wanted her System of Care Advisory Council bill to move forward. And Sarah Gelser and Anessa Hartman had opposed that radical change. And I'm not saying it wasn't necessary, but it was radical. It was significant. Like, we were overturning a lot of previous legislation that had passed through the body in one bill. Comprehensive approach, maybe swung the pendulum back too far. Anyway, not to debate that bill, but they had a bill that came through unanimously, and the governor only vetoed 3 bills at that point, and they were all Sarah Gelser, Anessa Hartman bills. And so we in the Senate said, why don't we overturn this veto? And Republicans went to our Democrat colleague, the chief sponsor of the bill, and she said, yeah, I'd like to do that. And so she went to her caucus, and then, of course, it blew up their caucus. And the point that I'm making is what you're talking about. We're the legislature. We are a separate but equal branch. We affirmed that this was a good policy idea to the tune of 90-0 or 89-0. I don't remember what it was, but it was significant, and there was no opposition. And the governor said, now veto that out of spite. Not because it was a bad idea, not because it wasn't good policy, but because she was pissed that she didn't get her bill. And so she vetoes this thing. And the amount of strife that caucus put themselves through, questioning whether or not they could veto the governor. I mean, you want to talk about offensive. Like, you're standing for the people. You represent the people. You know the governor just did this for political reasons. And your unwillingness to just stand there in absolute righteousness and say, screw you. Like, this is going back through.
We have a constitutional method of overturning vetoes.
Yeah.
And we're a separate branch. And the hesitation on the part of the Democrats in Oregon just shocked me. And it was, the bill was, in essence, a expansion in just a minor way of the foster kid Bill of Rights.
Bill of Rights, yeah.
The foster kid Bill of Rights. And the fact that Tina Kotek said, hey, you foster kids, no way, because I'm mad at her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's effective leadership right there.
All righty. What is one thing you hope to see change in the next long session? Besides more Republicans?
Well, I think that, what we certainly have learned in years ago when I was a freshman House member, we had a split House, 30 Republicans, 30 Democrats. And people always talk about that session being so cooperative. The leadership we had at the time, Bruce Hanna for the Republicans and Arnie Roebland for the Democrats, were wonderful leaders, and they worked cooperatively. And so having balance produces better results.
Yeah.
And so I certainly hope for better results, and I think that is more likely to be produced by having more political balance. But I also hope in the long session that there will be a finance in a budget, collective work to be honest about where we are as a state. And, the massive spending that Oregon has undergone. When we set the budget this next time in 27, I hope math wins. And I hope rational thought wins, and not, that our colleagues on the left and in the Democratic Party will realize that, okay, hey, we've got to have a long-term perspective on what's best for Oregon, rather than, hey, we're going to jam this policy through because it's a big FU to Donald Trump, and that's what we're about. And, sooner or later, the Democratic Party in Oregon has got to govern for some other reason than to stick the middle finger up to Donald Trump. I mean, I get it. They don't like Donald Trump. Well, he's the president, won the majority vote for the presidency, won the electoral college. And so I think our state has to govern from the mindset, and that's what my hope is next session, from the mindset of what's effective, what's best for Oregon.
I mean, is that too much to ask?
It probably is. I'm probably dreaming, but it's hope. You said it's hope, right?
But hey, legislature, come to Salem and represent the 140,000 people in the Senate you were sent here to represent, and represent the 70,000 in the House you were sent here to represent. Like, represent the actual people. Don't represent the leadership of the labor union. Don't represent the leadership of the special interest group. Don't be driven by political purpose, but be driven by a grassroots effort of what your people are actually asking you to do. If the legislature did that, our popularity would flip. It would inverse, right? I think 11% of Oregonians think we're doing a good job. Like 11%.
11%.
Yeah. It's some ridiculously low number. We're equal to Congress, and we're a reflection of society. Like, I get that. But at the same time, we're not enough of a reflection of the actual constituents that we represent.
No.
Like, we are driven by polls, we're driven by special interests. And again, I just wish we would come back. People are very concerned about affordability right now. Like, they are concerned. Where am I going to live in the future? Where are my grandkids going to live? Do I have to pull out a loan and add on to my house to make this multi-generational housing? Because my kids can't afford to come back. They're fleeing. And it was interesting. I was at a national RSLC event, and we were talking about igniting prosperity. And here I am from Oregon, listening to the people from Oklahoma and Florida and Tennessee and Texas and North Carolina talk about what they're doing in their states. And then you've got Hawaii, California, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Colorado sitting there saying, oh, well, all the people that we're driving out of our states are going to your state because of the things that we're doing, and you're doing the opposite. Yep. But there was a map that they put in front of us, and it was income tax by state. The states I named, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, like, no income tax. So where do you want to run your business? You want to stay here in Oregon where it's 9.9%, and then that's if you don't count the local jurisdictional taxes layered on top. But it's a tough state to do business. So I would love it if we actually were pragmatic about the real things that are challenges in our state. I know we're going to head into a 2026 election, to your point, where we're going to be big Trump MAGA extremists and anti-abortion, and that's going to be the thing that kills us, because that just speaks to their base, and it resonates. And at some point, their base has to let that go and say, you know what, I don't fear that change as much as I fear being driven out of my state because I just can't afford to live here. I don't fear that as much as I fear lawlessness and recklessness and drug abuse. The other thing that really did hit me during session, this is a little bit of a left turn from my previous rant here, but the placeholder, they got to go away. 37 in 2015, 70, 110, 17 and 19, up to 2023 had 451, and we were at 616 at the point of this article that I'm looking at. And it was more than that by the end. I think there were close to 700 placeholder bills in the Oregon legislature this last session. And we talked about this in a previous podcast, but you can relating to whatever you want, and then you can stuff it with an amendment at a moment's notice, give it no debate. And again, we're going to talk about this later in the bad conversation, I'm sure, but this transportation package, which we don't even fully know what it even is yet. The governor's saying, will you come in for a special session? Well, what's the conversation? What's the framework of the, but will you come? Well, I don't even know what we're talking about. And you're not going to tell us until when, and then you're going to invite us in and try and cram this through the day before a Labor Day weekend when nobody's paying attention, rush it through a process. I won't let that happen. We're not going to let them cram this crap through.
And didn't the governor tell you that she doesn't need Republican votes?
Yeah, I don't even need you. All I need you to do is to fill a seat.
So she doesn't want our input. She said she doesn't need our votes. She hasn't given us the bill. other than, a general framework. And that's great governance. That's
What do I want to see change? Transparency,
Yep.
accountability.
Yep.
That was the other thing. The OTC chair, Oregon Transportation Commission chair, the other day said, I'm tired of this conversation about accountability. We're accountable. Like ODOT is accountable. The Transportation Commission is accountable. And I said, again, I'm watching this, so I said it. She couldn't hear me. But, well, then tell me about the Abernathy Bridge that was supposed to be a $275 million project that's
Yes.
now over $850, and that's for a phase of the construction. That's not for the
Yes.
total scope.
Yes.
And so we're going to come back. This is going to be $1 billion plus project that was supposed to cost us $275. Who was fired? Who was demoted? What measures were put in place to make sure that never happens again? Like, if you want to talk about accountability, then demonstrate it. Don't just tell us, hey, I'm tired of it because it makes us look bad. Mike, quit talking about it.
Yeah, quit talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to kind of go back to that one question, and you kind of elaborated a little bit on it, Leader Bonham, but Republicans, everybody, strongly opposing HB 2025, which was the $15 billion transportation funding package. I think that was a big bright spot for Republicans in the Senate this session. And I know we're, in the bad, we'll talk about kind of your guys' thoughts on the upcoming special session and where we're going to go from there. But it was good to see all the Republicans just say, nope, we're not going to increase your taxes. Sorry.
It was not just, a tax increase. It was a massive tax increase
15 billion.
with very little in there that justified it. And but there are two narratives. One that we tell, which we just say, look at the bill, when we give data, and then the other narrative run by the majority party here in Oregon, which is, oh my God, you're not going to have streets plowed. And then because again, scarcity. And if you didn't give us what we wanted in a massive tax increase, we're going to attack,
Your communities,
people
the
in
rural
rural
communities, yep.
Oregon. We're going to attack, we're not going to plow roads. We're not going to, and it was just a tantrum.
Well, and then when session ended, though, they called ODOT and they said, make these cuts. And they basically took 2 years worth of budget and said, we need to eliminate that now. I don't know if you know how this works, but you don't get into the last 18 months until you get into the last 18 months. And you're only in the first 6 months and you're trying to make 2 years worth of cuts, knowing that you were going to call the special session, knowing that you were going to try and fill this budget gap. Like, you knew that you had a fix according to the governor, right? I have the 36 votes and the 18 votes. I don't even need Republicans. I have the votes. So I know I'm doing this, and yet I'm going to make the cuts today that are so harsh, and then I'm going to roll it back because I'm the hero. So instead of an August 1st deadline, I'm going to say, you know what? You can keep your job till September 15th, and I'm going to get in there and do a special session, and I'm going to be the hero. And the craziest thing was, session ended, and what did she do? Oh, those Republicans. Those damn
Can you believe that
Republicans.
Tina Kotek, the governor, blamed Republicans for her own party members not voting on the bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. They had the entire deck stacked.
Yeah.
They couldn't even,
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later next episode, but I do want to touch on SB 83, and especially both of your districts are heavily affected by wildfires, right? And can you just speak to SB 83 and repealing the flawed state wildfire hazard maps as well?
This one was interesting because, again, it got personal for some people, right?
Yeah, as it does.
Jeff Golden, had been kind of the champion of the original wildfire bill, and so his name was on it, and there were some of us that voted no, and were able to articulate why at the time. Hey, you did this comprehensive review of what the global need is. We knew we needed some training, some cross-training from structural fire to wildland fire. We knew we needed investment to thin forest, and we quantified that investment. And it was, hundreds of millions of dollars per year over a 20-year term. So it was multi-billions dollars over 20 years that
Yeah.
we knew we needed to invest to reduce our fire risk. And then they said, well, we also want to know kind of globally for the state where to strategically place resources. And the only way we're going to know that is if we produce this wildfire map. And there were quite a few of us. Bill Kennemer stood up in committee. A few of us stood up on the floor and said, hey, wait a second. If the state produces a map of risk, won't insurance companies just look at that map and say, well, we need to either raise or eliminate coverage in these areas, right? We got to raise the cost. Like, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. They would be so irresponsible to not use it.
Right.
And so we said, hey, this is going to be a problem. And we were told, no, it won't. Like, we're going to pass a bill that tells them that they can't use this map to justify rate increases. And so this was a big deal. And back and forth all session long, it was used as leverage by the Speaker of the House. Hey, I'm not going to sign this, or I'm not going to put this bill to a vote. You have broad, bipartisan, near unanimous support to overturn this wildfire map, but I'm not going to do it until you vote for a new tax to fund wildfire mitigation and suppression.
Right. Speaker Fahey.
Yeah. Julie Fahey held this bill hostage. Again, this is the stuff that just drives me nuts. It was the right thing to do. You have all the leverage in the world. You're a supermajority. You don't need to hold bills hostage when they're good policy. You don't need to veto bills, Governor. Like you have the majority vote. You have the coalition. You can move your agenda. So when good policy comes forward, just move it.
Yeah, and I would also argue too, it might be a little offensive to you guys too, because your districts bear most of the brunt of that stuff anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's yeah.
But we finally, she finally, under pressure, put it on the floor of the House, and it passed, and we were able to repeal it. I tell you what, Republican advocacy was so key to that, and other Democrats started joining, and the momentum built, and there were non-renewal notices sent out.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of my district.
Yeah. Just in my hometown alone, there were at least 210 people that got a non-renewal.
Yeah.
And that's not including the people that got rate increases. And then, of course, I represent up over the mountain. So if you're up in Zigzag or Rhododendron or Welch's and you're saying, well, I'm in the middle of the forest on top of a mountain, they are telling me that I'm not, within a reasonable distance of the fire hall. And they didn't even come up here to look that I've, cleared vegetation 100 yards in every direction from my home. They just know that there's vegetation in this area. So they just assumed that I hadn't fire hardened my home. And so I got this notice. And so it was a massive fight. And I want to double down on something you just said. You said Republican advocacy, which I absolutely agree with. But when we are the strongest in the building is when it's clear that the people stand with us. Mm-hmm. And it was absolutely clear. The emails that we were getting from every corner of the state, overwhelming, bipartisan, nonpartisan, people that don't want anything to do with either party, we're weighing in on this, saying this is terrible. This is a really bad idea, and you should repeal it. Now, this doesn't fix for those people that got those notices. It just makes sure that it doesn't expand it. It doesn't make sure that the state continues to affirm the risk. Yeah. But people are still having to fight. They're still having to say, hey, come out, look at my house, do a review. I want insurance on this place. And super important, because in my district at the end of session, we had a fire that went through Rowena. 56 structures lost, primary residences, another 190 some odd, structures of like the sheds and the barns and the different things, but the outbuildings, but 56 structures.
Wow.
I don't even want to tell you the percentage of people that were uninsured. A lot of people were not insured. And these are not wealthy people. And what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to rebuild. And I'm sorry, Jeff Golden and others who supported the fire maps to begin with. That's a big driver for why these people didn't have insurance. Either they couldn't afford it or they were offered no coverage.
Yeah. And you presented that argument to begin with.
Yeah.
They didn't listen.
Yeah.
They passed the bill. Then it completely blew up. And then not only have we now repealed it, the consequences, however, still are there. And the reality of that fire in your district is that now, Senator Golden, are you going to go out and meet with them?
It is the challenge, right?
Right.
And
because I tell you, he's probably not, right? And because those folks are on the outside, and now their assets are gone.
And quite frankly, it wasn't just Senator Golden, right?
No.
Like there were a lot of people that voted for that bill that ignored warnings that then I think the reason why we bring up Senator Golden's name a lot is because he kept doubling down that he didn't want to get rid of him. And so he finally did get to the point where he saw, okay, wait, this is a problem. But it took a few years of political pressure to say, get rid of the wildfire maps. And thousands of people showing up to his town halls in his home community saying, this is a bad idea, get rid of these.
Yeah. Well, excellent input as always. Another, we've been talking about rural Oregonians, a big victory for them, SB 777, which is established a compensation fund for livestock lost to wolves, championed by Senator Nash. How long have they been trying to do this?
Decades,
right?
Wolf comp.
Yeah, I mean, it started when I was in the House, so
Yeah.
I guess it'd be 15 years. If the public says this is what's going to be the public good, is we're going to reintroduce wolves, and there are portions of Oregonians who are bearing the brunt, economically and culturally, et cetera, of that decision, then the public needs to realize, hey, we've got to help these guys, in the same way that if I say, the public says, I want to shut down, a whole street and make it a park. Okay, well, if that's your street that you live on and you now have to have another route, then the public needs to produce another route. And the introduction of wolves gave little consideration to what everyone said is going to happen. We're going to have population of elk and deer decline, but of cattle as well. And the compensation came out, I think, probably 12, 15 years ago, and it wasn't very much, right? And then you had to deal with the fact that an ODFW wolf expert had to certify it. That was a wolf kill instead of something else kill. So it's been a long road getting to the point where we say, look, and go back to the episode where Senator Todd Nash describes it. I mean, it's the reduction in the fertility rate. I mean, just go down the list of all the consequences, and then the calves you can't find.
Right.
So that we came up with a structure of a better and I think more realistic compensation for wolf kills.
Yeah.
That matches the reality. And Todd Nash, Representative Bobby Levy were advocates for that. I mean, I was on the bill too. They were the chief sponsors and advocates, and it was really great to see that pass. Yeah. I hope. I haven't heard. Has the governor signed that, or is that on a veto list?
Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen.
What's fascinating too, though, was this was the one example that was thrown in my face all session long when I would say in meetings with presiding officers and other Democrat leaders, where's the bipartisanship? Well, we passed 777. I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. Like your response is to laugh, but that's what was thrown in my face.
Yeah.
You Bonham, you keep talking about the lack of bipartisanship. We passed 777. We passed that bill for you guys. Like there you go. Like that, you got one. That's enough.
That's enough. Yeah.
Like again, an important topic to people that have sheep and have cattle. Like this is a big deal for ranchers that are losing. I don't have ranchers in my district. I'm one of the most urban, conservative districts that exist. And so to tell me that the big win for me is something that doesn't affect my community at all, it's a hard pill to swallow. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy to help the ranchers of Eastern Oregon. Like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally solved the problem. But then it was a $2 million ask. And there was a compensation package that coincided with 777. I don't remember the bill number. It was 852, or I'm making up a number, but there was another bill that had a direct funding stream for this package. And at the end of the day, what did they do with that funding stream package? They killed that bill, and a Democrat in the House came in and said, if you want your funding, you have to agree to this transient lodging tax increase. So we're going to raise the costs to come and visit Oregon by 1.25%. Now, if you look at the compounding nature of transient lodging, different jurisdictions can layer on. So if you're Portland and the argument was it's only 1.25%, but you're already at 15.5. So now you're at 16.75. And when that convention that's coming to Portland is trying to decide whether or not they want to go to San Diego, Seattle, San Francisco, or Portland, that 1.25% is hundreds of thousands of dollars when you're a convention.
Right.
If you're talking about, oh, that's only $20 for you to go to the place at the coast, this is no big deal. You're more than willing to pay the $20 to support all these other wildlife things. It was a $100 million tax that was going to dedicate $3 million to this wolf compensation. And that's how they tried to leverage our own members to support that tax. I mean, again, you want to talk about a hard pill to swallow and the different tools that the Democrats use that should be offensive to everybody. In order to get the thing that you want, you have to give us 97% of the new tax that you don't even want to support, but that's the only way you're going to get your money.
Yeah, people don't realize that that's exactly what happens. And it's that brutal, that transactional, that petty. And because ultimately, it comes down to, why do they have this insatiable appetite to get more revenue? Because under their leadership, the growth of the social justice agenda and providing, millions and billions. I mean, I look, why would they be so reluctant to give $2 million, $3 million to, compensation to ranchers who are losing cattle and productivity to wolves, which was a state decision to do? Oh, that's right, because they appropriated $15 million to pay lawyers to give free legal services to adults who knowingly came into the United States illegally.
Right.
So when you cross the border of the United States, or into the United States, it's a federal law. When you do so, and you haven't got the right documentation, et cetera, it's not like those folks are going, what? You mean just coming to the United States without paperwork? That breaks a law? No, they know it, right? They know it. They know it breaks a law.
Would you travel overseas without your passport?
No.
Okay.
No. So then they come here but it's all those, they're looking for a better life. All the stuff you just go, okay, I'm not debating you on motivation. I'm just saying that there's a law. They violated that law. They knew they violated that law. And Oregon says, well, hey, if you cross the border, you come to Oregon. Cross the border illegally, you come to Oregon. Guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to need a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Oregon took taxpayer money
Right.
and appropriated $15 million.
Right.
That's what Democrats did.
Yep.
And so that's just one example. There are hundreds. And so then when they turn to us and say, we don't have $2 million to pay for compensation for the wolf bill. And you're like, yeah, you're spending 15 million there. You're spending 20 million. I mean,
Yeah.
right. I
$15
get up.
million on down payment assistance for non-citizens. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can get to $1 billion rather quick, 2 to 3 billion.
Yeah.
With rolling up your sleeves and getting in the budget. So when they come to us, it is offensive.
Yeah.
It's offensive for them to say, hey, we don't have any more money, but if you raise a tax and get us completely new revenue, or you increase a tax and get us new revenue by this increased tax, like you said, transit lodging, then we'll compensate the folks that live in your district. And that's where I hope folks realize that's the government they got.
Right.
When there is no check and balance, when there is no sort of pressure, having been in court a lot in front of the bench, even on the bench, if you're in a court case and only one side presents the evidence, it's unhealthy. And so we have this system where after you're done, the other side presents their evidence. And what is true comes out when your evidence gets to be vetted subject to cross-examination and vice versa. It's called the adversarial process, which, some people don't like that name. But when you're talking about the legislative branch, not the judicial branch, when you have only one side presenting the evidence and the other side can just say no. And even in a committee, you can raise your hand and begin to question their evidence or question the testimony. And the chair just says no. Or what happened to Representative Shelley Bosart Davis, you just get yelled at. You just get, and shut down, right?
Yeah.
That's unhealthy for the system.
Yeah. When Shelley Bosart Davis quotes somebody else's line from the same meeting that was ignored, right? Representative Gamba, when talking about the Republican alternative, said it was grossly irresponsible. So Shelley quoted him in saying this bill is grossly irresponsible the way you Democrats are putting it forward. And of course, presiding over the committee was Susan McLane in the House, but her co-chair is Chris Gorsuch.
From the Senate.
He screamed at her. How dare you? How dare you? It's okay for us to call your idea grossly irresponsible, but how dare you call us?
How dare you question me? But we're the Democratic Party. We're saving the planet.
But this
we're
adversarial
caring for people
conversation that you're talking about, this is the whole reason why we're doing this podcast, right?
Right.
Like people have asked, what motivated you to do the podcast? And I said, I don't think people hear our perspective. I don't think they understand how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Like, why am I telling you about the transient lodging tax in this fight? And of course, people are like, well, you sold out to the Restaurant and Lodging Association. No, I didn't. Who wants to pay 1.25% more for their tax on their hotel room? Like, people are annoyed as it is now. And again, it is driving business away. Yeah. When you're talking about a major conference coming, you can't just use the example of you and your wife headed to the beach for a weekend. It's $20. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually it is. In the organ that you're creating with the taxes that they are, and I'm getting less and less of my own income, and my wages are not keeping up. All the Democrat policies have exasperated the wage gap.
Yes.
They really have, right?
Well,
here in Oregon, rich people have money and poor people have less.
The cumulative effect of just death by 1,000 cuts, and that cut was the transit lodging tax. That's just another cut. And so the cumulative effect, whether it is in a conference cost, which actually has big impact effects, or on an individual who, coming from Central Oregon, going to the coast, let's say. Okay, so your cost of getting there That's only a, 6 cents, 10 cents, whatever more a gallon.
Yeah.
And you just add up the cumulative effect, and pretty soon the cost of your trip going to the coast is now an additional $100. Right?
But you only think about these 6 cents, right? If you're a Democrat in Salem and you're trying to pass this tax, you're thinking, I just drive around Portland. This 6 cents it's not that big of a deal. You're not thinking about the trucking company. You're not thinking about the small business guy that has a territory that's 75 miles in diameter that has to deploy trucks every day to go service their customer. Like, you're not thinking about the people that live in Wheeler County that are 65 minutes from the nearest healthcare facility, that are 30 minutes from the nearest place of worship, that are 50 minutes from the school. Like, you're not thinking about the people that do drive further for everything.
Everything. Yeah, and that, the cumulative effect of just little small taxes, but again, they insulate themselves from this idea that, hey, we're providing, we're caring. Remember when President Barack Obama said, everything I do is motivated by caring?
I don't remember that.
He said that. And I thought, wow, so that insulates you from criticism. That insulates you from adversarial vetting of your evidence. Because, hey, you're just trying to care here. You're just caring for people. Don't you dare question me.
Yeah.
And so in states that are different, a red state, I'm sure a Democrat could talk about that, but we're in Oregon. We're in deep blue Oregon, and we're on the West Coast, which has, what they call West Coast liberalism running amok. But this idea that first and foremost, they cannot be questioned because they're saving the planet.
Yeah.
You're trying to hold me, quote, accountable? I'm doing God's work here, people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I could go recently into the preschool for all and how the county's directors just had to resign in disgrace, right?
Yeah.
Because
Directed at $800 and some thousand dollars to
yeah,
themselves.
for $800 and some $1,000 over 3 years to provide preschool for 6 kids.
Yeah.
And how dare you question me?
But wait a second, where do I get this job?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
I can take care of 6 young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could put them to work or whatever. But in the sense of like, all right, kids, today we're going to pick weeds from the garden. But my point is, that's what daycare was with my dad. Quote, mom's on a trip and dad's in charge. It was like, hey, when mom's here, we get like snacks and get to watch TV. When you're here, you're telling me I got to go weed?
Yeah, here's some bark dust we just got delivered in the front yard.
But I digress.
So here's the funny thing. We're here talking about the good.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we've gotten into the bad and the ugly. But at the end of session, this was an interesting thing. I was invited to participate in a conversation with a Democrat on a TV program. And the first question took me a little bit by surprise. The question was, if you had to grade this session, letter grade, what would you give this session? I had not put any thought into it, so my response was off the top of my head. And of course, he called on me first, which I really appreciated. But I started to think about, how did we do from a Republican super minority position?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
How did we do? And I thought, I'm giving this session a B. All things considered. And again, we're going to hear from our gun lobby friends when they see my answer. They're going to be like, we got screwed. And do you know how much worse it could have been?
Oh, my word. Yeah. I was in a lot of those discussions being on the Judiciary Committee, and I'm just like, so much worse. And the amount of work behind the scenes.
Energy and environment. Labor and business, judiciary. You go down the list of all the things, the water policy that was coming our way that was just brutal. Like, there really were a lot of things to celebrate. And unfortunately, the celebration is to the fact that we said, hey, we want you to do no harm. Don't raise taxes. Don't increase the regulatory burden. I'm curious. So you've been in the building, you've been around the building,
Yeah.
you were staff. Like, what's a fair letter grade? And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
but
I would agree with. I'll say C plus. I'll go C plus.
Yeah.
Like above average but again, disclaimer. I've been there for 6 months, right? I worked for the federal government. I worked for Congress, but I've only been in the state legislature for 6 months. So I'm fairly new, but I would say a C plus. I would definitely agree with you that it could have been completely worse, like way worse, based off the work, the conversations, and everything that I witnessed. So my whole thing is I cannot believe that the Democrats, with a completely stacked deck, could not pass the transportation package, but just weren't able. They weren't as effective. It kind of felt like the train was running amok sometimes. Maybe that's leadership, maybe that's membership, who knows, but I think you guys held your own, and it's evident on some of the bills that we're talking about today. You guys did have some success in a super minority, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 18 Democrats, 12 Republicans in the Senate, and same ratio in the House. And when we say super minority, meaning that they didn't need a Republican to pass
anything.
to pass a tax increase. And there was interesting. I watched the episode, not all of it, but about the grading in B, and I thought that's not a bad place to be, to say that we were able to kill a lot of bad ideas in working behind the scenes with some members of the Democratic caucus who represented districts who those policies were going to be impacted. So and that's the thing that is true. I mean, you've got folks may not realize this, but so much of the legislative agenda is moved by their caucus leadership. So the Speaker in the House, President of the Senate, you got certain committee members, and it's not like everyone in their caucus is like, "Woohoo! I'm glad this is happening," right?
Yeah.
So it takes work to make the case to say this policy bill is really bad.
right.
And then you have certain times where the policy bills are really bad. And the reason that they're moving it is because they're donors for campaigns, the public employee unions. I mean, let's not kid around about that.
Yeah,
it's not all unions. Trade unions, a lot of the private unions and et cetera are truly bipartisan. Some of them aren't. Nurses union has become very left-leaning, but a lot of these folks support Republicans, et cetera. But when it comes to the public employee unions, SEIU, AFSCME, et cetera, they rolled in there and said, you shall do the following.
Yeah.
Right? And
course,
and when you have a bad bill like 916, which gives unemployment benefits to striking workers, and they would say, argument, we're just trying to even the playing field. Yeah. I'm like, you live in Oregon. Yeah, the playing field is grossly in favor of the employees to begin with.
Right.
And now you're basically saying that should they actually strike, they get paid while they're on strike. So unlike people who, through no fault of their own, lose their job and need an unemployment benefit, these folks chose to strike.
Yep.
And they're going to be paid. And so even though some Democrats voted against it, if you look at where those folks live and what districts they have, you just go, well, that totally makes sense. But boy, arm twisting done. But, so.
First state in the nation, though, to say public employees who work for the government who's performing service that they've deemed essential, because they've deemed it essential through the taxation, right? They've said, this is so important that I have to tax you.
Appropriation.
I'm going to tax you to pay for it.
Right.
Right? So I'm using your public dollars to pay for the service that is essential for the public. But now if those people decide that they need to strike, we're going to let them go on unemployment and not provide you the service, and ultimately cost you, because it's a drain on the system, which means it's a drain on taxpayer. And so we're going to have to raise a tax somewhere to pay for it. Like, at the end of the day, people will pay for the lack of service that they aren't being provided by the very government that's taxing them to provide the service.
And yet they passed it.
And they did. And unapologetically, they said, this is a good idea. This is important. SEIU did not get the transportation package, which is interesting, right? That was one of their big asks. And the hard part for me was I told their representation, I'm with you. The jobs you're trying to protect are the ones I care about.
Yeah.
That's why Republicans created the plan to keep
Right.
the people in the hard hats and the reflective vests
Right.
employed. What I don't care are the hundreds of thousands of dollars per year middle managers that aren't doing much of anything. Like, there is a whole layer of bureaucracy I'm willing to get rid of. There are people that push paper. There are people that manage the managers of the managers who are then talking to the person that's doing the work. Like, I'm okay with getting rid of some of them and creating more direct lines of management and some accountability through that. And of course, they appreciated that, but they still pushed for the governor's option, which was more taxes, which I don't understand why they didn't agree with us. They're in the middle of collective bargaining. They could have easily said, hey, what if we all take a pay freeze and allow more people to keep their jobs? But by pushing for a $375 million increase for global compensation change, they then don't have the $358 million. They need to keep the very jobs that they're laying their own members off. If you're a member of these labor unions, you should know your labor union chose to get rid of you so that fewer of them could have more money. I think that's an important distinction that people should know about. I don't think people fully understand that their representation has left them. Their representation serves themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced with the labor unions. The management level of the public labor unions serves themselves, and they don't serve their representation of the people that actually do the work. Which is completely offensive. And
Far too often.
Far too often. Yeah, not every time. But the other thing that they wanted that they didn't get, which I found fascinating, was they wanted that workforce standards board, right? They wanted it in long-term medical care, and they wanted it in the farm setting, right? They wanted an ag workforce labor board, and they wanted a long-term healthcare provider labor board. And that labor board is just another layer of bureaucracy for labor unions to have influence.
Yes.
And they didn't get it, though. Like, it's fascinating to me that, like, you talk about the power of these labor unions. I talk about it all the time. And two of their major asks, they didn't get.
Wow. Well, that's a very good point. That tells you how bad their ask was. They can't even get the votes amongst the party that they paid to be in power.
To be in there. That they contributed to. We were talking about low income Oregonians and the wage gap. SB 465, which supports low income Oregonians by creating savings towards their future. It's an IDA, an individual development account. I don't know if you can speak to that. I believe it came through Senate Finance and Revenue.
Yeah, Senate Finance and Revenue, and it's a bill that is. It continues this program forward. Mm-hmm. And the goal is to get folks to have incentive that if they put away some money and the state helps with that seed in that, they, develop, good habits but of saving, which I think is a great habit of doing that. But then they it gets people in position later to have some control over their lives and to be able to get that money for that down payment on a home or
a car or their education. The tribes specifically, in my experience, have really leveraged this well. And really it does. It incentivizes you to invest in yourself. Like, that's the beauty of it. And so the state comes in with some matching funds, and the amount of people I know, I used to represent Warm Springs when I was in the House, and the amount of people I knew that had personal testimony of the money that they had put in, that they used for starting a small business, for going to college, for the down payment, like you said, on a house or a car. It was a just a revolving door of people coming in saying, hey, support this. This is how it helped me. And so it's been an easy one for me to support. I think it's doing great work. It's going to continue to do so. But that was a big win.
Yeah. And investing in Oregonians, not, illegal immigrants, stuff like that. What a good idea. Right. Another one, this one's a little bit near and dear to myself. I'm not a homeowner yet. Would like to be one here in Oregon, but increasing house production. SB 974 imposes a shot clock. It's a speed up of land use approvals, and other states have this. I believe when I was looking into it, Texas, I think you have to do it within 30 days.
Yeah.
But there is some other examples. San Francisco and New York, it exceeds 240 days. And this one, I believe, cut it down in Oregon to 120 days. I don't have it cited right here, but I believe that's what it did.
And basically, it tells that jurisdiction, give us an answer. The answer is yes.
Yes, exactly.
Hawaii just did this.
They did. Okay.
Deep blue Hawaii with very little conservative representation said, no, this is a big problem. So Dick Anderson was a big champion of this one. This is a great win for our caucus. And then also the shortage of the building inspectors, the one that you've got on the screen there.
Yeah.
That was another big one.
It's huge.
And Tina Kotak talks about all the time. She talks about housing shortage and we need more housing. And she set this lofty goal of 36,000 units a year. She's never even come close.
Right.
Every year she's performed under the previous year when she took office. She just continues to underperform in this area. And thankfully the legislature is trying to help deregulate, try and get her own agency out of the way of stopping production.
So we can build it. Yeah, exactly. Last slide here, we've got I kind of like these are fun ones, right? Senate concurrent resolutions, right? Designate SCR 13 designates the T-bone steak, the official state steak.
Todd Nash, Senator Nash in his freshman term,
Sorry for all you ribeye fans.
pulled off one of the biggest wins, SCR 13. And I've been at two functions where we've been celebrating that, where I've been given cattle women, both time T-bone steaks. And in fact, they did it for all the Senate and the House and some staff members too, because they came in and said, we're celebrating the T-bone.
Yeah.
I like T-bone steaks.
How can you not like a T-bone steak?
And, Senator Nash had a good freshman term because, he actually spearheaded and got Senate Bill 777 passed, was an advocate on quite a few other ideas. But we give him a lot of, ribbing about the T-bone steak, but, he pulled it off. And frankly, there was method to this. I mean, his goal was to highlight, the cattle in the beef industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah. This has to be near and dear to your heart. Leader Bonham,
Yeah.
SCR 21, commemorates the 100th anniversary of the Multnomah Falls Lodge, celebrating a tourism economic driver for the state.
Yep. In my district, wonderful opportunity to get to know the folks that run this lodge. And we're going to have a big celebration end of September. I don't know that we have the date yet, but we're going to invite all the dignitaries. And yeah, it's going to be a big deal. Looking forward to it.
Breakfast with a tremendous view.
Oh my
I always
gosh.
love going up and eating breakfast up there.
Oh yeah.
So, and then HCR 12, which designates February 11th, 2026 as Oregon Wheat Day for all your farmers out there.
Well, and these SCRs are fun, right?
Yeah.
We take either people, personalities, events, and we just honor them. And you had one, the greatest sniper in
Yes.
the history of Oregon.
Yes.
And
in the
Marine
greatest
Corps.
sniper in the history of the
Marine Corps.
Yeah.
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 And the Mulwiney, Mr. Mulwiney from Baker City, but what an amazing story he was. And he's passed on, and his story of just being a true hero and the lives he saved in service in the Vietnam War And there was a book published about him, and nobody knew. I mean, he was a guy, doing his job in Baker City, and one of the county commissioners, Shane Alderson, and was taught, how to shoot by this guy. He had no idea.
Yeah.
His dad and Mr. Mahoney were friends, and he, and then to come find, he found out it's like, what? I mean, the guy who taught me how to shoot a rifle was the greatest sniper in the history of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And considered the fourth greatest sniper in the history of American warfare. So to get to honor him and his legacy, it was a really honor to get to spearhead that. And his family was down for that big day, and that was pretty cool.
I was going to say, when you go back to the first question, favorite memories.
Yeah.
This is why it's hard to choose.
No, there are a lot.
There were quite a few because
Yeah.
we honored a fallen firefighter a day in the Rules Committee, and then again on the floor. And serving on the Rules Committee, all these come through that committee. And so to have Representative Elmer come and share her story of adoption, and then the amount of other representatives that stood up and said, oh my gosh, I was adopted too, let me tell my story. And things you wouldn't know about an individual until they volunteer it, right?
You're right.
And so, just a lot of these are really something that's heartfelt to an individual member, or something that resonates
Right.
with them, and they bring them forward and they tell the stories of the people from their district. Christine Drazen put forward one with the fallen Vietnam veterans from Clackamas County, that they all had touched Clackamas County either in their later life or earlier in life. But I remember reading their names and a little bio on the Senate floor. And it probably took me all 10 minutes of the carry to read those names. And that was just the people that had a tie to Clackamas County.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the actual list from the state of Oregon, I probably read 2.5 pages of what is 151 pages of the fallen heroes of that war.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that stuff enough. So it was, people bring these forward. They're very thoughtful. And again, it was fun to learn of a hero, a greatest sniper in the Marine Corps, the fourth greatest in the history of our military service. Like that, that's an amazing story that I don't know I would have ever come across my reading file. And yet, we got to take the time to celebrate it. Those are always fun.
Yeah, and that was SCR 28 for the listeners too, if they want to go back and look. And shout out to Jake Pelroy too. He was a big help on that as well.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was cool.
Chuck Mulvaney, amazing guy.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we've covered a little bit of the good.
Yeah.
Next we'll cover the ugly, as I like to call it. So, but there were some bright spots, some fond memories, senators.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, we are the legislative branch, and Oregon has a government that, needs to get back to the basics, back to what are the core missions of this government. And in this legislative session, and what's going to happen this year is, Oregonians feel that, whether it's, paying more to have a hunting license, and so you do all this, and I voted against it because hunting is becoming expensive. And, so all these little things add up, and
They do.
And so what happens in the legislative branch in Oregon matters, and it's affecting Oregon significantly. And while we were able to do some good, I think perhaps our greatest accomplishment was derailing what was bad.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, all right. We'll see you next episode. Thank you.